Well, my number 2 film is the film that is probably going to win the Oscar this year for Best Picture, if you ask me. That's Richard Linklater's Boyhood. I mean, you know, what can you say? It's just like kind of a singular achievement. You know, it's ridiculously moving in a kind of a never or rarely manipulative way. You know, the transition between the years that this film is cataloging is so subtly done. It feels like the greatest special effect you've ever seen when you see the aging of Eller Coltrane in it. It's like, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? You know, it's just like, even if you know how the movie was made over the 12 years that it was made, you know, and so forth, it still feels very special, you know, when those sequences move through the, you know, the episodes in this person's life, these people's lives. And I think you said, or one of you guys said, that it was just a movie, it was also a movie about parenthood just as much as it was about boyhood. So that is true too. I mean, I think that and also I don't think that it's spoken of enough that Lorelei Linklater is also great in the movie as the boy's sister. So so it's really a movie about familyhood, you know. But you know, a great song score, again, another one of the great source music scores of the year, just always surprising, and beautiful editing, and you know, of course, just a one-of-a-kind achievement. So for me, I mean, like, if this movie does win Best Picture, which I fully expected to, you know, I've kind of been on board with it ever since I've seen it. I was like, is that going to win Best Picture? Can this possibly happen? And it feels like it can, and it feels like it's going to. And if so, it'll be one of the best Picture winners ever, and certainly one of the most unusual movies to win the award in probably 15 years at least. So that's my number 2, Boyhood.
Great choice. Very good choice.
Yeah.
So you think it'll win over Birdman?
Yeah, I think so.
That's not what I'm worried about. I think Grand Budapest has picked up a lot of steam lately.
I'm thinking that, you know, that American Sniper is really going to be in the conversation over the next few weeks, given that it just, you know, conquered the box office and so forth.
No, it's gonna be. I think it's grossed. Well, by the time it's done, it will have grossed more than all the other nominations combined. I think, is that what the word is on the street? Okay,
yeah,
that's a good possibility. But I really think Grand Budapest looks like its main threat right now, but you could be right about American Sniper. I wouldn't be surprised.
I think that Boyhood's going to end up winning picture, director, and supporting actress, and maybe editing, with the screenplay award going to Wes Anderson for Budapest. So I think that's how they'll.
Then maybe you're right. Then I think they'll give it to him for that. I think that's a very good prediction. I mean.
Yeah, I think that it'll win that and win a couple of craft, particularly costumes and sets, and that'll be that.
Okay.
So,
Jerry, you're
and I guess
number
American
2.
Sniper can't really win because it's got the director thing, which Eastwood didn't make it into director. So.
Yeah, and then Foxcatcher got director and not picture. So weird. Bennett Miller got
very odd.
It's a very weird thing.
That's the first time that's happened since the picture category expanded to 10. Because I was wondering if that was ever going to happen again.
You didn't tell me you couldn't pick 10 pictures. There were definitely 10 pictures you could have picked this year.
It has to have a certain percentage, and I guess Foxcatcher was number 9 or whatever. You know.
I don't get it, dude. I don't get it.
But
my number 2.
But, you know, and then American Sniper did $90 million this weekend. The biggest January opening ever. I had no idea.
And the biggest thing for Eastwood.
Eastwood ever? Yeah.
Yeah, dude. It's
I mean, that's like Iron Man numbers. I mean, that's
those
just
are big
so weird for it to be like
incredible.
American Sniper.
Okay,
Jerry, you're number 2.
Instantly, by the way, it becomes the biggest hit out of all the. Previously, the biggest hit out of all the nominees was Budapest. I think Budapest made just under $60 million, which is a big number for that movie, but for that kind of movie.
And it only took American Sniper 3 days to make that. I mean, and that doesn't bode well for viewership for the Oscars, by the way. But anyway,
that's a big problem. That's a huge problem.
Anyway, Jerry, number 2.
Wild. Wild is my number 2. Reese Witherspoon just once again delivers incredible performance as Cheryl Strayed. I was really taken with this movie from the get-go. But once again, like I said, there's a theme here: people reinventing themselves, coming to terms with their lives, their mistakes, what they've done in the past. I just love. It's a beautiful-looking movie, absolutely beautiful. And I just thought her performance. I thought she was the front runner, and I know that Julianne Moore is obviously, she has a lock on this category, but I'd love to see Reese win it for this. It's just a really good performance from her. The movie rests on that performance. You don't have a movie without her. But when Reese is, I don't think Reese gets enough credit when she's good. She's on fire. She's on fire in this movie. And
what I loved? You know what I loved about it? I was really surprised by this aspect of it, and it did make it into my top 30. What I loved about it was Jean-Marc Vallée's direction in it, which, I know he got a lot of acclaim for Dallas Buyers Club last year, but this was I felt a big leap forward for him.
Oh yeah,
and, because it was a movie that transforms a memoir, obviously, and a memoir in which the person is alone most of the time on screen, into a narrative through not only through very, very inventive editing, which, editing back and forth between her previous life and the life that she's living as she's traveling across the country, but also I loved its sound design, like how it would play. How, like, for instance, there's a reoccurring song in it, Paul Simon's El Condor Pasa.
Yeah.
That kind of pops up in it, and it's obviously a song that's important to her and her past and so forth. And often while she's going through the wilderness, you'll hear her in her mind putting new lyrics to it and so forth.
Yes,
and
she does.
And how it mixes the two songs together, like her version of the song and the real song together. And it really gets you into her head, I think. I think that's the movie's biggest, directorially, its biggest, asset is the fact that it puts you there with her. And it's not just Witherspoon's performance, and she's terrific in it, but it's also Vallée's direction in it that really does it.
The other thing is Laura Dern. We really can't, and it's really great to see her get a nomination. But this is really a mother-daughter film, because she says that she says flat out that my relationship with my mother was the greatest, was the love of my life. And it's a very heartbreaking film, and you see, but you also see that once again another film where she was down the worst parts of your life, but you can come back from it. And it's a very important theme.
And also, we don't get to see, in movies seem to be obsessed with the father-son relationship for some reason. I think it's just all a holdover from Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. But I feel like movies are still obsessed with fathers and sons, and very, very refreshing to finally see a movie about mothers and daughters.
Michael and Vito too. You got to bring that into consideration. That really goes back to the Godfather.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. But I mean, like.
Well, I was really pleased to see Laura Dern get nominated, and she was one that really campaigned for it. I mean, she every round table she was involved in, and it's nice symmetry that she got nominated the year after her father. I think that's nice.
Yeah,
makes you all googly inside.
And we forget how good she is.
She's very good.
I would like to see her in more leads.
She's very smart. She's very smart and articulate about acting. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's when you go from, I don't know, choose a Laura Dern role, smooth talk to playing Lula. I mean, she's just great. Come on.
Yeah.
My number 2 is Whiplash. I was flabbergasted by this movie. This movie, it has to be the most energetic movie of the year. I mean, it just plummets you, and it contains obviously the most ferocious performance of the year in J.K. Simmons. Which the funniest line of the Golden Globes the other night was when he said, J.K. Simmons, or as Matthew McConaughey calls him, just keep Simmons. I thought that was beautiful. Anyway, I thought it was amazing, and I know, just like you said, Dean, people have problems with the logic in it. They're like, at the end, they'd say there's no way a teacher in the middle of Carnegie Hall or wherever they were would sabotage his own show in that fashion. I believe that character would. And what's great about the movie is at the end they both get what they've dreamt of. They both get exactly what they want, and they give it to one another. But they do it in a way that is completely not predictable. And he has the only other thing I have to say about it is he has such a special way of directing music. That director. He's
obviously a musician. I mean, he's obviously a musician.
The way he films it, he makes that music come alive. I mean, it throbs.
He does. Yeah. It's true. I mean,
an amazing movie, and you could, and it really gets you to think about a very unique issue, which is what makes an artist. The challenge, how they respond to challenge, how difficult should that challenge be? I mean, how torturous and sadistic. Is it anything compared to what the artist does to himself? Isn't that part of the discipline of it? It reminded me a lot of Black Swan in that respect, which takes
it has a lot of that.
A similar look at the tortures of kind of ballet, and that's what it is. It's torturous to achieve perfection.
Well, I also liked what it had to say too about teachers and how far do you go in teaching? I mean, do you just rubber stamp everything and say everything is good, or do you sit back and say no? And I mean, you could extrapolate that into criticism as well, which would harken back to something like Chef, which Chef touches on some of these themes as well, very lightly. But it's like, is criticism inherently negative, or is it something that has a positive upside to it? And so I thought the movie was just as much about that as it is about the artist's side of being able to take it.
And it's not predictable in anything, because I was also touched by the way the father was portrayed. First of all, it was surprising to me to see Paul Reiser play the father, and it's a really good performance. And the father could have been written as a complete loser, but he's not. He's a very loving, devoted, genuine father, a very genuine character that you really like. And so it doesn't take the easy way out there either. But there's that amazing scene at the dinner table with the rest of the family.
Oh, that was
great.
It's just everything about it is so kind of wonderfully observed. It's just a great movie.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Like one of the like eye-opening directorial achievements of the year. Like, whoa, this is a new voice. So,
one of the few movies, by the way, that ends at the exact moment when it should end. I mean, to the second. You know what?
Yeah.
Just there you go, and it just leaves you floored.
That movie is cut brilliantly.
Yeah.
Brilliantly.
Yeah. Number 1, Dean, the biggie.
All right. Well, the biggie is going to be a surprise to many people because even though I don't usually like this when, say, Jerry comes up with, a tie for three movies.
Well, I only have it for 2 this year, so don't
okay.
taste it, baby.
All right, but I am picking a tie, and I'm picking it as a tie specifically because I believe these films are related thematically, and I didn't realize that they were this related until I really started thinking about them. It's actually kind of ridiculous, the similarities between the movies. But my tie for number 1 is Birdman and also The Congress by Ari Folman.
Wow.
I feel like both of these movies kind of attack the same kind of concerns about, they're both about artists who are struggling with their later years and how their legacy will be perceived. I think that Birdman takes it sort of inward and goes inside the main character played by Michael Keaton, and to kind of a ridiculous degree where we're not even sure like what is reality and what isn't in it. And I think also that the Congress actually takes it outward and has the same sort of kind of unusual take on what is reality and what isn't. But it sort of extrapolates it to a broader vision where, the Congress is really is just as much about how in the future the dangers of our consumption of entertainment, the dangers that might be inherent in that. And so I really think that that's, essentially what the movie is about, but it also works as a character study as well. And the movies are so similar. I was really, when I started thinking about it, I was like, oh my God. I mean, they both even have sequences in it where the main characters, take flight towards almost at the exact same moments in the story. So, I just, Birdman, they both also gave me like sort of that kind of feeling that I love when I come out of a movie. Birdman so engaged me, and it felt like I've said it on this show before. It felt like the biggest magic trick of the year, and I found it funny. I went with it. I let it carry me where it was going to go, and the cast was absolutely superb, and that great Antonio Sanchez drum score just still rumbles in my ears. It just left me, kind of floating on air. Whereas the Congress did the same thing, but the Congress actually kind of reduced me to tears. And I actually feel like the Congress will be a harder movie for people to get with a little bit because, it since a lot of it is animated, it'll all depend on your enjoyment of it. Will all depend on how much you're willing to go with that style of animation, which for a lot of people is quite weird. Like if you've never, a lot of people haven't seen the kind of animation that movie is referencing, that sort of Max and Dave Fleischer stuff from the 30s, and Ralph Bakshi a little bit, and Yellow Submarine. I would say that might be the thing that most people might be able to, relate it to. But both movies just completely floored me with their way of transporting me to another world, and I love that they're related. But yet they're not. So for me, it was really easy to link them both in together as a tie for number 1. It just felt natural. So that's my number 1, Birdman and the Congress together.
That's just a great choice. I mean, those are great choices, really. I mean, that's very, and just very impressive how you link them both together. Wonderful. All right, are we ready for me, or?
Yes, we are.
Okay, well, since Lena Dunham and Mindy Kaling did not appear in a remake of Rich and Famous, which they keep hoping for every year, my number one movie is a tie as well. What a shock. I mean, let the hate mail start. And there are two movies that really were Chef and Nightcrawler. I really could not choose between the two, one over the other, because I was just blown away by each of them.
And they too have so much in common.
Yes. Well, in a way they do. But the one thing no one's really talking about, we talked enough about Chef. We talked about Nightcrawler, both of them. Enough. Nightcrawler, his performance is the best performance of the year, even more so than Michael Keaton. His performance is just otherworldly. It is Chauncey Gardner on crack. It is just an incredible performance. And he's been on a roll since Source Code, it seems like. I mean, Enemy. And, let's be honest, he was awesome in Zodiac. Jake Gyllenhaal doesn't always get the credit he deserves.
Yeah, he was great in Prisoners. I mean, he's a very impressive actor.
Yeah, I mean, he's just incredible. He's superb.
Yeah, he was the best thing in Prisoners, I thought, yeah.
I mean, but he is just, that is such a kinetic performance. You just can't wait to see what's going to happen next. I mean, oh my God! And you're on, like you're on the edge of your seat, as you said. You just, oh my God, what? I mean, the home invasion sequence. I mean, you're like, dude, you're going in there? What the fuck? I mean, it's just a thing. And then the scene where the diner, where there's the diner at the end, the restaurant. It's like, oh my God, you just can't wait to see what happens. But I couldn't choose between both, because they're both such movies I didn't really have any expectations for before I went in. I just thought, okay, I didn't know much about Nightcrawler at all. Chef, I knew a little bit about it, but I was just floored, blown away. Just like,
but why did Chef make your top of your list?
Well, everyone knows I like Chef as soon as I saw it. After I saw it, I was just, it goes with this whole thing we've been talking about with Begin Again, Wild, and Obvious Child, talent, that you can reinvent yourself. You can come back from ruin, because you would think, after that, that he could have easily just thrown in the towel and gone home and wallowed in self-pity, but he doesn't. He goes and he does reinvent himself, and he has to go across the country to do it.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that I like about it is that it's about a very particular world of being a cuisine chef, and at the same time it makes it universal.
Yeah.
Because he's good at what he does, because he serves it with love. And it's about him learning to apply that same passion to the other areas of his life.
Yeah. And you talk about food, movie. It makes you hungry. That movie makes you hungry. I don't care who you are.
Anything makes me hungry.
Well, I mean, but also what I like about it is, we forget he's a very good director. He basically, let's be honest, he did make Swingers. Let's be very honest. He really did make Swingers. And Made. No one talks about Made anymore. But that's one of Vince Vaughn's other really great performances. And John gets that out of him. We don't talk enough about Made. And he's a good director. Yes, the first Iron Man is good, and he lost his way after that. Cowboys and Aliens, the less said about that, the better. Even the second Iron Man, the less said about that, the better. But he's a really good storyteller, and he really, with this movie, found a way to really come back into that. And there's more power to him. It's just
you feel a lot of heart in Chef.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the great open-hearted movie of the year for me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. My number one is a movie that made the festival circuit in late 2013, but it was not released in theaters in the U.S. or anywhere in the world until 2014. Therefore, I'm calling it a 2014 movie.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think so. So, and it is Jodorowsky's Dune.
Wow, number one.
I just couldn't think of a movie that made me more excited than this one all year.
Mm-hmm.
It is just about pure love pure love of the possibilities of cinema and creative collaboration and unbridled imagination, and how the industry, even 40 years ago and especially today, it's only designed to suffocate those things. So I think it is an essential movie for everyone that listens to this show, that shares our passion. This is the poster movie for that. Just beautifully inspiring. Look, I don't like sci-fi. I don't care anything about Dune. I didn't even really know who Jodorowsky was before I watched the damn movie. I mean, I knew like scant biography information, like a couple of his titles. But I was so I came to this like completely blind. But I was blown away by his just movies. They live in him. This is exactly the kind of person you want making movies. Someone that can't do anything except make this movie. And it was so inspiring. I mean, I felt like giving a political campaign speech after watching this movie. I felt so passionate about it.
No, this is definitely one of the great documentaries of the year. Just missed getting into my top 10. I mean, like,
it almost made my top 10.
Literally number 11 for Payback.
I mean, I really wanted to put this in there. I thought one of you two would do it though. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was exciting, and I love also too that it's possible that people who aren't familiar with Jodorowsky's work, like El Topo, of course, the famous cult film, but also Santa Sangre and particularly my favorite, Holy Mountain.
Yeah,
and he came out with a movie this year, which
The Dance of Reality, which I'm waiting to come out on Netflix for. So
I haven't seen yet, but I love that the movie might lead people to go and experience some of Jodorowsky's like really truly unbelievable movies. But also just how this failed attempt at a movie, created an entire future for so many in the industry that kind of used a lot of his vision and extrapolated it to other movies, to other projects,
I know.
Alien and so forth.
I mean,
so
H.R.
Star Wars.
Geiger, Star Wars. I mean, all these guys really profited, but unfortunately he did not. But by the way, speaking of Jodorowsky, I have a box set of his films, and we talked about this many years ago, I think, because I had watched El Topo and the Holy Mountain, and it's a great box set. And the first film I saw by him was Santa Sangre, 25 years ago, I think, and just such a crazy movie. I never saw anything like it, but it was just, the guy should be making more movies. I mean...
And by the way, as an interview subject, he is like unparalleled in the film. Like absolutely one of the great interview subjects of any documentary I've seen in recent times, where he's just so engaging and kind of. I love how he finally accepts it. And I particularly loved his commentary on David Lynch's version of Dune, which I thought was one of the big laughs of the year. I don't know. He's just one of those people that just can't be anything else but himself. And and I love that. So definitely a great movie, Frank Pavich. That's another movie that should have been nominated for the documentary award.
Acts of Crime. I mean, that didn't make that, and that Roger Ebert didn't make the thing. Those are big snubs. I mean,
I'm
surprised, by the way, that Life Itself didn't make either one of your top 10 lists. So,
I wanted, like I said, I want to say something. There are a lot of good movies to pick from this year, and I think that's a good. There are really a lot of good movies. Maybe not truly masterpieces, but there are a lot of good movies to pick from.
There are some that I saw that I liked that didn't end up on my list. I saw it on a lot of top 10 lists, and I was surprised by it, and it wouldn't make my top 10 list, but I was very intrigued by Only Lovers Left Alive. I did watch that movie, and I dug it. I dug it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I found it very easy to fill out a top 30 list, and even in that, I was leaving off a lot of movies. I mean, probably 30 or 40 more movies that I thought, these are movies that need to be seen.
The Babadook was the best horror film of the year. And I was thinking about action movies because you put in the Raid 2. I was thinking about because I usually try to include every kind of genre that is worthy. I thought about Edge of Darkness. Is that what it was called? Edge of Tomorrow.
No, Edge of Tomorrow. Yeah.
I get confused now.
Edge of Tomorrow, The Drop, Calvary. These were movies, and even the Skeleton Twins. I was, like torn about, but The Drop and Calvary and Jodorowsky's Dune. They were all vying. You got to really play because you had, like I said, a lot of good movies to pick from. So.
All right, so that's it.
Yep.
That's it, guys. So, 2.5 hours. We reviewed our top 10s of the year, and next week we're at it again for our big Oscar prediction spectacular.
Sounds good. And by the way, you can go and check out my top of the year list on filmicability.blogspot.com, and you'll see not only the movies that I picked for the top 30, but also the movies that I thought were the worst of the year and things like that. So check that out.
On that list?
Huh?
Was Transcendence on it? Yeah.
You know what? I didn't see Transcendence, but my worst of the year is probably Locke.
Locke, Transcendence. What else could we put on there?
Okay. God's Not Dead. Left Behind. God's Pocket.
You sat through those. That's what makes you a good man, Dean. You sat through those. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, so anyway, you can check that out.
Lock is a lock for worst picture.
Lock is a lock for the worst.